Welcome to Max Asian. What's coming from TVN this year has every sign of being a historic season. Suspense thrillers that are going to keep everyone talking, romantic comedies that promise pure dopamine, a period spy drama already generating one of the biggest buzz stories of the year, and long-awaited comebacks. There's something for everyone. Stick around because we're going through the most powerful lineup the leading Korean cable network has put together for this year. But before we start the video, it would mean a lot if you took a moment to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for your support. Number 12. Siren's Kiss. Every man who falls in love with her ends up dead. That's what the insurance records show, what investigators whisper among themselves, what nobody dares say to Han Se-ola's face, the head auctioneer at South Korea's most prestigious art house. Beautiful, charismatic, flawless in everything she does. Cha Woo-shuk is the country's top insurance fraud investigator. Cold, methodical, absolutely convinced that every crime follows traceable logic. When a life insurance case leads him straight to her, he begins investigating her as a suspect, but the more he gets to know her, the harder it becomes to maintain any professional distance. The tension between them is exactly what the trailer promises, a mix of distrust and an attraction both of them know is dangerous. This is a remake of the Japanese classic Ice World from 1999, and the bet on updating it for a contemporary Korean context makes a lot of sense on paper. Park Min-young chooses a character completely unlike anything she's played before, and Lee Ha-jun arrives fresh off Squid Game with a screen presence we already know well. The mystery's twist will be the real test, but the starting point is solid. Number 11. Mad Concrete Dreams. Everything starts with a completely legitimate dream, owning a building in Seoul. In Korea, that's not a luxury. It's the most concrete version of financial security. Ki Soo-jong worked years to make it happen, made it happen, and now the accumulated debts are about to take everything away. With his family depending on him and no way out in sight, he agrees to take part in a staged kidnapping designed to get him the money he needs. The plan was simple. Of course it was simple. Until it wasn't anymore, and what began as controlled desperation spirals into real crime that no one involved saw coming. Ha Young-woo returns to television 19 years after his last small-screen project, choosing a character that forces him to show vulnerability without sacrificing tension. His on-screen wife Im Soo-jung gives the drama that layer of domestic comedy that perfectly balances the darker moments. The premise satirizes Korea's real estate obsession with a bluntness that's going to hit hard for local audiences, but the story works for anyone who understands what it means to fight, not to lose the little you built. Number 10. Chilling Romance. Cheon Yori has everything. Heiress of one of Korea's most powerful conglomerates, director of a luxury hotel, with a presence that fills any room she walks into. But she carries a curse that has isolated her entire life. She can see ghosts, and the spirits of those who died with unfinished business won't leave her alone. Ma Gang-yuk is an elite prosecutor, relentless at work and with such a strong sense of justice that he doesn't negotiate with anyone. A seemingly coincidental encounter pulls the two of them into a murder investigation neither one asked for, and in the middle of the supernatural chaos, his logic and her spiritual intuition are going to need each other. Adapted from the beloved 2011 Korean film of the same name, originally starring Sun Ye-jin, but with significant changes to the premise here, the lead's dynamic involves investigation and suspense beyond the romance. Park Yoon-bin returns to TVN after the phenomenon that was Extraordinary Attorney Woo, and Yang Se-jong comes straight from the success of Low Life. Expectations are sky high, and every trailer released so far has backed them up completely. Number 9. Filing for Love. What happens when the person who audits office relationships is herself hiding something that wouldn't survive an audit? Ju In-ah is the head of internal audit at a major company, the one who shows up to review accounts, processes, and everything nobody wants examined. She has a reputation for being relentless, precise, and impossible to negotiate with. No Ki-jun was the star of the audit department until he was demoted and reassigned to the internal misconduct division, basically turned into the company's official romance hunter. Their paths cross constantly, and between the professional tension and the secrets neither of them wants to reveal, the situation gets complicated in ways nobody planned. Shin Hae-sun arrives from the Art of Sarah with an acting credibility that no longer needs to prove anything, and Gong Myung comes from the success of Mercy for None. There's also a supporting cast member generating serious anticipation on his own, Kim Jae-wook, who knows exactly how to get under the audience's skin with very few scenes. The trailers look very promising. Number 8, Four Hands. At an arts high school where only geniuses are accepted, someone nobody expected shows up. Kang Bio was the best pianist of his generation discipline, natural talent, a trajectory that put him on track to sweep the 3 major international piano competitions. Then Choi Jong-yo arrives, a guy who grew up turning his back on his own gift for reasons nobody at the school knows, who shows up without a track record or fanfare, and whose playing forces everyone to rethink what they believed about excellence. The series explores friendship, rivalry, and what happens when two people who need each other can't tell whether what they feel is respect, competition, or something harder to name. Four hands is a musical term for the technique of two people playing a single piano together, and that image says everything. Song Kang returns to television in his first project after military service and chooses a more restrained and technical character than his fans expected, which may be exactly the evolution he needed. Lee Jun-young could be the series' real revelation. Number 7, Back to Work. 7 years at the same company, and somewhere between year 3 and year 4, something switched off. Ji-yoon is stuck in a professional rut she doesn't know how to get out of, doing just enough not to get fired and hoping nobody notices she's running on autopilot. Then Sai-woo arrives as her new direct supervisor. Irritating, unpredictable, stubborn, with an energy that gets everyone moving whether they ask for it or not. Based on the webtoon of the same name, the story takes a very relatable starting point and turns it into an office romantic comedy that plays with the tension between two people who on paper shouldn't click, but on screen are going to work incredibly well together. Park Ji-hyun has a naturalness in comedy that not many actresses of her generation pull off without visible effort, and Seo In-guk returns to Korean television as the lead of a romantic comedy for the first time in years. The risk with this kind of premise is always predictability, but the pairing and the director behind the project suggest there's something more interesting underneath the surface. Number 6, My Favorite Employee. 11 years following the same idol from a distance, and suddenly life hands you the chance to work at the company he founded. Nam Do-reum didn't hesitate for a second. What she didn't anticipate is that the boss she's going to interact with every single day isn't Lee Chan, the former idol turned CEO she admires, but Kang Ha-gi, the startup's managing director, apparently cold, inflexible, and with an energy completely opposite to hers. Except underneath that exterior, there's a warmth she never expected to find, and that complicates everything. The premise of a fan who ends up falling for the boss instead of the idol she admires is as smart as it is funny, because it flips the expectation of both the protagonist and the viewer at the same time. Kim Hae-jun arrives at this project straight from Cashrow with an acting credibility she's already locked in, and Kang Hoon has proven season after season that he knows how to build male characters with more layers than they initially show. Based on the webtoon My Appa is an Idol, this has every ingredient to become one of the most addictive romantic comedies of the year. Number 5, Love in Disguise. Yoon Yi-jun has everything on paper. Heir to one of the country's most powerful conglomerates, looks, intelligence, and a position anyone would envy. The problem is that his extreme sensitivity and perfectionism make no employee last more than a week by his side. When his personal secretary turns up dead and he becomes the prime suspect, he shuts himself off from the world. Then Kang Jae-hee arrives, a former special forces officer who disguises herself as a man to go undercover as his new personal secretary and find out if he actually committed the crime. What nobody expected is for the two of them to end up needing each other in ways neither one planned. The dynamic is every bit as absurd and funny as it sounds, but with a real investigative tension that gives every twist weight. Im Si-won brings the versatility he showed in Squid Game 3 and picks a comedic character with dramatic depth, while Seo In-na's physical transformation is already completely convincing in the first previews. Based on the webtoon of the same name, the genre mashup here promises a lot. Number 4, Retired Agent Management Team. Behind a car wash in an ordinary Seoul neighborhood, there's a man who looks completely unremarkable. Quiet neighbor face, uneventful life, nothing that draws attention. That man is Kim Chul-soo, legendary former Black Ops agent for the National Intelligence Service, codenamed Penny, who has spent years sheathing claws that nobody knows he still has. Go Johan is a super ace agent from the current generation. Brilliant, perfectionistic, desperate to prove he can become the best field agent the institution has ever produced. When the two end up working together to unmask a mole who has been operating from the shadows of a criminal organization for over 25 years, the generational clash between them is as big as the threat they're facing. Cha Seung-won in lion in sheep's clothing mode is exactly as funny and threatening as that sounds, and Kim Do-hoon comes with the momentum of Dear X to prove he can carry a project of this scale. The writers behind A Bloody Lucky Day handling the script are a guarantee that the story has real edge. Number 3. Yumi's Cells 3. Before talking about this season, some context for those who don't know the franchise. Yumi is a completely ordinary woman whose inner life is told from the perspective of the cells in her brain. Hunger, love, rational, emotional, each one represented in three-dimensional animation inside a live-action world. It's a technical and narrative combination that, when it works, produces emotionally devastating precision. In this third installment, Yumi is no longer the office worker she was. She became a best-selling romance novelist with millions of devoted readers, but love remains the challenge her most overwhelmed cells still can't handle. Her cell village is in a quiet pause until Shin Soon-rock arrives. The new editorial producer assigned to work with her appears cold and brutally direct, but hides a warmth underneath that surface that Yumi is going to discover slowly. Kim Go-yoon and Kim Jae-won already worked together in 2025, and the audience response was very positive. It sits at number 3 because this is the final chapter of one of the most beloved webtoon adaptations, and first impressions are very strong. Number 2. The Legend of Kitchen Soldier. What happens when the most promising recruit in basic training ends up peeling potatoes in the base kitchen? Kang Sung-jae grew up in a family drowning in debt, no network, no money to open doors, what in Korea they call a plastic spoon. He arrived at military service as the top recruit in his group, and a twist of fate sent him straight to the kitchen unit. Then, just when he thought everything was lost, something only he can see appears. A virtual mission screen that challenges him to become the legendary cook of the armed forces. Mission by mission, challenge by challenge, Seon-jae starts discovering that behind every dish, there are real problems in the unit that need someone to actually see them. The premise sounds absurd in 3 lines, and on screen it's every bit as addictive and emotionally resonant as it promises. It was the only Korean production invited to the series Mania Festival in France, where programmers praised it with enthusiasm that few Korean series generate before their premiere, and singled out Park Ji-hoon's lead performance as revelatory. It sits at number 2 because the combination of military life, video game mechanics, and personal growth has everything needed to be the biggest surprise of the year. Number 1. 100 Days of Lies. Gyeongseong, the 1930s. Korea under Japanese occupation, the clandestine resistance operating in the shadows, and the Japanese government general controlling every movement in the city. Lee Ga-kyung is the most skilled pickpocket in all of Gyeongseong, a woman who survived by sharpening her instincts instead of depending on anyone, with one concrete dream: save enough money to make it to the United States and start over. What she didn't expect was for the Patriotic League to propose that she infiltrate the Japanese government general as a trainee interpreter for 100 days, playing the role of a fake spy who slowly becomes something far more real. Inside the building, she crosses paths with Kim Tae-young, an elite trilingual interpreter adopted by the head of political affairs, carrying a divided identity between 2 worlds that hate each other. The romance that develops between them is as tense as the danger surrounding them on every side. It takes the number 1 spot because it brings together the director of Extraordinary Attorney Woo and the Dr. Romantic franchise, with Kim Yoo-jung in her most ambitious project yet, alongside GOT7's Jin Young in the most complex role of his career. The level of anticipation is enormous and completely justified. That was the most anticipated lineup from TVN for this year. From the thriller already on air to the spy drama that's going to close out the year with everything. Tell me in the comments which one you're already watching and which one you're most excited about. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave your like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss our upcoming content. See you in the next video.